The Masked Men, Tommaso Cioni and Dominic Evans. Nancy Guthrie, case update. The internet needed suspects. It did not wait for evidence. It did not wait for investigators. It did not wait for facts. It simply looked at two ordinary men living ordinary lives in Tucson, Arizona, and decided, this is the story of what happened next. Your name, your face, your home address, plastered across hundreds of posts, videos, and comment sections, all saying the same thing. You kidnapped an 84-year-old grandmother. You did not do it. You have never met this woman, not really. You are a schoolteacher, a father, a drummer in a local band that plays gigs on weekends. You go to work. You come home. You love your family. But none of that matters now, because the internet has already decided. Within hours, cars are parked outside your house. People are walking past your windows. Your wife is hiding in the bedroom with the lights off, shaking, too scared to move. And the only thing standing between your family and a mob of strangers who think you are a criminal is a locked front door. This is not a scene from a movie. This is what actually happened to two real men in Tucson, Arizona. Two school teachers, two fathers, two completely innocent people whose lives were torn apart not by the person who took Nancy Guthrie, but by us, by the internet, by the viral machine that decided it needed a villain before the facts were in. Today we are telling their story because it needs to be told. Who is Nancy Guthrie? Before we can understand what happened to these two men, you need to understand the case that started everything. On the night of January 31st, 2026, 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie was dropped off at her Tucson, Arizona home by her son-in-law just before 10 p.m. She walked inside. She was safe. Nancy arrived at her daughter Annie and son-in-law Tommaso's home around 5:32 p.m. that evening via Uber. The family had dinner together, spent quality time, and Tommaso drove her back, dropping her off at approximately 9:48 p.m. By 2 in the morning, a fully masked man with a gun holster, black gloves, and a backpack appeared on her front doorbell camera. By 2:28 a.m., the app monitoring her pacemaker went silent. When her family arrived to check on her the next morning, her phone was still on the table. Her medication was still in the cabinet, and drops of her blood were found on the front porch. Nancy Guthrie, mother of Today show anchor Savannah Guthrie, had been taken. The nation was gripped. The FBI was called in. Tip lines flooded with calls, and the internet, desperate for answers in a case with very few, started doing what the internet always does when it smells a mystery. It started pointing fingers. And the first finger pointed directly at the man who dropped Nancy home that night. His name is Tommaso Cioni. He is 50 years old. He was born in Italy, moved to the United States in 2006, and built a life in Tucson, Arizona. He teaches 6th grade science and biology at a charter school. He loves herpetology and the study of reptiles. He makes homemade pasta. He plays bass in a local rock band on weekends. He is also married to Annie Guthrie, Nancy's oldest daughter, which made him the last known person to see Nancy alive the night she disappeared. For the first few days after Nancy went missing, Tommaso was not publicly named. Investigators were working quietly. The family was cooperating fully. Everything was being handled professionally. And then, on February 4th, a journalist named Ashley Banfield went on her podcast. And she said 4 words that changed everything. Banfield reported that a trusted source had told her Tommaso Cioni was a prime suspect in Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. That was it. That single claim from one source, unverified, not confirmed by any law enforcement agency, was all it took. Within hours, Tommaso's name was everywhere. His school was being called. His personal history was being dug up. His social media posts going back years were being analysed and reposted. The FBI was seen at Annie and Tommaso's home on February 4th, using a forensic data extraction device and carrying out boxes of items, and the internet saw those images and erupted. Never mind that investigators visit the homes of family members in every single missing persons case as standard procedure. Never mind that cooperating with a search does not make you a suspect. Never mind that no law enforcement agency, not the FBI, not the Pima County Sheriff, not a single official had named Tommaso as a suspect. The internet did not wait for any of that. The Pima County Sheriff's Department responded quickly, making clear there were currently no named suspects or persons of interest in the case, and that they were looking at everyone who had contact with Nancy as standard procedure. But that statement was drowned out by the noise, because the internet was already hunting. And it was about to find a second target. Enter Dominic Evans, the band connection. Here is where the story takes a turn that would be almost unbelievable if it were not completely true. Someone. No one knows exactly who started digging into Tommaso Cioni's personal life, his friendships, his social circle. And they found something that seemed, on the surface, to connect two dots. Tommaso played bass in a local Tucson rock band called Early Black. The band was formed in April 2007, after Tommaso and a man named Dominic Evans met guitarist Walter Gonsalves through a Craigslist advertisement. Dominic played drums, they recorded albums, they played local gigs in Tucson, Phoenix, and Flagstaff. They were bandmates and friends. That connection, a shared band, a shared hobby was all it took. Online users began placing photos of Dominic Evans side by side with the FBI surveillance image of the masked suspect at Nancy's front door. They circled his eyes. They compared his build. They analyzed his jawline through a ski mask. And then, someone posted a thread that spread like wildfire across every true crime forum and social media platform in America. It read, "I think everyone in that inner circle should be looked at and fully vetted, including this guy, Dominic Evans. He's Tommaso Cioni's friend and bandmate. Has arrests for burglary, robbery, embezzlement, DUI." That post was all it took. Now let us be very clear about who Dominic Evans actually is. Dominic Evans is 48 years old. He is an elementary school teacher in Tucson, Arizona. He is a father of 2 young sons. He is married to Andrea Evans, a school principal. He plays drums in a local band on weekends. He coaches. He teaches. He lives a quiet, ordinary life in the same city he has called home for years. And he had met Nancy Guthrie exactly once in his entire life. He told the New York Times he met Nancy back in 2011 when she held an Easter egg hunt at her house, and he brought one of his kids over to join in, one afternoon. 15 years ago, an Easter egg hunt. That is the sum total of Dominic Evans' connection to Nancy Guthrie. But the internet did not want context. It wanted a suspect, and Dominic Evans, through absolutely no fault of his own, had just become one. The nightmare begins. The mob arrives. Now I want you to really sit with what I am about to describe, because this is the part of the story that does not get talked about enough. Well, this is the human cost of what happens when the internet moves faster than the truth. Dominic Evans learned about Nancy Guthrie's disappearance while tucking his 2 young sons into bed one night. He saw it on Instagram. He recognized the name Tommaso Cioni, his bandmate, his friend. He did what any decent person would do. He sent Tommaso a text message offering his support. That was his only involvement. A text. Offering support to a friend whose family was going through something unimaginable. But within days, his address had been posted online. People descended on his Tucson neighborhood, convinced he might be the man who had abducted Nancy Guthrie. His wife Andrea told the New York Times what those nights were like. She said it was all night looking through the window, trying to not let any light out of our home. Think about that for a moment. A school principal, a mother, hiding in her own bedroom in the dark, terrified to turn on a lamp, because strangers were gathered outside her house, strangers who had decided, based on a social media post and a grainy surveillance image, that her husband was a kidnapper. Andrea Evans told the Times she was scared numb by it all. And Dominic? He was interviewed by investigators about a week into the case. They asked him about the band, his friendship with Tommaso, and where he was on the night Nancy disappeared. He told them he was home with his family. The interview lasted about 40 minutes, and he has not heard from investigators since. That is not the treatment of a suspect. And that is the treatment of someone investigators spoke to as a matter of thoroughness and moved on from, because there was nothing there. But the internet was not done with him. At least 5 individuals, including Evans, faced harassment, and addresses for 12 different people were doxed online. Their home addresses shared publicly, their lives put at risk, their families terrorized. All based on speculation. All based on nothing. Dominic speaks. I feel like someone took my name. On February 25th, almost a full month after Nancy disappeared, Dominic Evans broke his silence. He spoke to the New York Times. And what he said is one of the most heartbreaking things to come out of this entire case. I feel like someone's taken my name, he told the Times. I don't know why monetary, clickbait, to be relevant, are entertainment, but there are innocent people that get hurt. He is talking about himself. He is talking about his wife Andrea, who hid in the dark. He is talking about his 2 young sons who have to go to school and face the world in a town where strangers decided their father was a criminal. He is talking about Tommaso Cioni, whose home was searched by federal agents on live television, whose name trended nationally for weeks, and whose wife Savannah was watching all of it unfold while simultaneously grieving her missing mother. And he is talking about something bigger than just his story. He is talking about what this case revealed about all of us, about the way we consume true crime, about the speed at which we appoint villains, and about the real human wreckage that is left behind when the viral moment passes and the internet moves on to its next target. The sheriff, the man leading this entire investigation, heard Dominic's story, and his response was remarkable. He's going through hell and it is horrible, Sheriff Nanos told the New York Times, and I don't know what to tell him except he probably should be speaking with some attorneys and sue some of these people for libel. He's sheriff of Pima County, the man responsible for solving Nancy Guthrie's case, telling an innocent man to hire a lawyer and sue the people who destroyed his reputation. That is how badly this situation got out of hand. Tommaso's story, the man behind the accusation. Now let us go back to Tommaso Cioni because his story deserves its own moment in this video. Tommaso is a 50-year-old Italian-American who arrived in the United States in 2006. He settled in Tucson, built a career as a science teacher, married Annie Guthrie, and became part of the Guthrie family. He is described by people who know him as thoughtful, warm, and deeply devoted to his family. On the night Nancy disappeared, he did everything right. He drove her home from a family dinner. He made sure she was safely inside her house. He watched her go in. He drove home to his wife and child. He was the last person to see Nancy, not because of anything sinister, but because he was being a good son-in-law. And yet, when Ashley Banfield went on her podcast and called him a prime suspect, his world collapsed. The FBI came to his home, forensic devices were used, boxes of his belongings were carried out in front of cameras. His name became synonymous with crime online. Eventually, the Pima County Sheriff cleared the Guthrie family, including all siblings and their spouses officially and publicly. Tommaso Cioni was not a suspect. He was never a suspect. He was a grieving son-in-law who drove his mother-in-law home and has spent every day since then not knowing what happened to her. Savannah Guthrie herself was reportedly livid over the reports linking Tommaso to the case, and if you understand the full picture of what this family has been through, you understand exactly why. They were not just dealing with a missing mother. They were dealing with a media and internet ecosystem that had turned the person sitting at their dinner table into a national villain. The bigger lesson. What this case revealed. I want to step back for a moment. Because this video is not really about Tommaso Cioni and Dominic Evans. Not at the deepest level. This video is about something much bigger. Something that this case has exposed with brutal clarity. We, the true crime community, the internet, all of us who consume these stories have enormous power. And we do not always use it responsibly. When a case like Nancy Guthrie's breaks, there is a genuine impulse to help, to find answers, to do something, and that impulse is not wrong. It is actually beautiful. It is people caring about a stranger. It is communities rallying around a family in pain. But that impulse, when it moves faster than the facts, becomes something else entirely. It becomes a machine that produces suspects without evidence, ruins reputations without proof, and terrorizes innocent people without consequence. At least 12 people had their home addresses shared publicly during this investigation. At least 5 individuals faced direct harassment, 12 families, 12 front doors, 12 sets of children who watched strangers gather outside their homes. None of them were the person who took Nancy Guthrie. Not one. And the person who actually took her. They are still out there, still free, still unidentified. While the internet spent its energy on a science teacher who once played bass in a local band. There is a lesson here for all of us, and I say this as someone who covers true crime, who is asking you right now to engage with this story. The lesson is this: curiosity is not the same as evidence. Proximity is not the same as guilt, and the damage we do when we get it wrong is real. It does not disappear when we scroll to the next story. Where the case stands. Real answers still missing. With all of that said, Nancy Guthrie is still missing, and that is the most important sentence in this entire video. While the internet was busy destroying the reputations of 2 innocent teachers, the real perpetrator was and still is unknown. Authorities have not publicly identified Dominic Evans as a suspect. Law enforcement continues to pursue leads in the case, which remains open and under active investigation. Investigators have been working with a grand jury reviewing evidence, including what is described as haunting audio clips from inside Nancy's home. A prepaid phone ping near the scene and a Bluetooth connection to an unidentified second vehicle have both been flagged as potential leads. The DNA analysis using forensic genetic genealogy is ongoing. The neighborhood canvass continues. The FBI tip line is still active. And the Guthrie family, Savannah, Annie, Cameron, and yes, Tommaso are still waiting, still hoping, still asking anyone with information to come forward. The family has offered $1 million in reward money. The FBI is offering an additional $100,000. That is over $1 million waiting for the person brave enough to tell the truth. The real story of Nancy Guthrie is not about Tommaso Cioni. It is not about Dominic Evans. It is about an 84-year-old woman who deserves to be found, and a family that deserves to know what happened to their mother. Dominic Evans ended his interview with the New York Times with 8 words. 8 words that I think should stay with all of us. Like he said, there are innocent people that get hurt. He was talking about himself. He was talking about Tommaso. He was talking about every person whose name was thrown into this fire without evidence. But in a way, he was also talking about Nancy. Because Nancy Guthrie is innocent too. She did nothing to deserve what happened to her. She was an 84-year-old woman who went home after a family dinner and never woke up in her own bed again. She deserves justice. Real justice. Not viral theories, not social media verdicts. Real investigators, real evidence, and real answers. If you have any information about Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, please contact the FBI right now. Call 1-800-CALL-FBI. Visit tips.fbi.gov. Over $1.2 million in reward money is waiting, and tips can be made completely anonymously. If this video helped you understand the full picture of this case, please share it. Because the more people who know the truth about what happened to Tommaso Cioni and Dominic Evans, the more we protect the next innocent person from the same nightmare. Subscribe for weekly coverage on this case and others. We are not going anywhere. And neither is this story. See you in the next one.